Esoterinerd podcast, episode 100, in which Robby Strong, also known as Silence the Aquarian, and I interview JoEl Meeks-Matous. JoEl is the founder and CEO of TMM. He is the inventor of the nanotube-aerogel matrix, which is the cornerstone of all TMM technology and composites. He's also a friend of Robby's. In this episode, we discuss ancient, modern, and future nanotechnology, climate change, psychedelics, politics, religion, faith and science, Kabbalah with a K and Qabbala with a Q, and many other things. But first, Transformations and Footnotes. For those of you who are new to the Esoterinerd podcast, this is the segment in which I recite portions of my father's book, Transformations, and sometimes I comment on it afterward, which is the footnotes. This is Transformations by John Dan Reeb, Chapter 4, Verse 9. With so many of us here who journey, and with more of us popping through to now awareness every parsec, it's better to listen to and experience the tape that's playing now. Verse 10. Oh sure, flesh-place fear junkies have mirrors on their ears and they don't even know it. They live their lives by mirrors. Verse 11. Once I had a crazy uncle who owned a pool hall. It was one of the old kind with an open front. Flies would come in and he would hang fly paper. He'd run out of fly paper, so many flies got stuck. Verse 12. Anyhow, he'd get furious and run outside swatting flies. Apparently, the flies, much like flesh-place fear junkies, like to watch their kind being slaughtered. The more that came, the more he swatted. That's the way the new tape is playing, just like the old ones. Verse 13. So it is that the flesh-place fear junkies will make right and make wrong, finding conspiracies stuck to the flypaper of their intellect. No footnotes for today on that one. I suppose I owe you a bit of explanation. It's been over 2 years, 2.5 years, I think, since the previous episode of the Esoterinerd podcast. For those of you who remember, who were following the last few episodes, you might have noted, oh, he's talking about, going on a long trip and maybe never coming home. And then the last episode, then there was the episodes in South Africa, and the last episode I was in Faridabad, which is near New Delhi. I was staying with my friend Yash, and I was starting to date Priyal, or Pew, and a lot has happened since then. Long story short, we were married in a small Hindu temple in Tamil tradition, Southern Indian traditional wedding at the beginning of 2019, so that's going on 2 years now, and we're currently living in Goa, naturally staying inside most of the time on account of the worldwide pandemic. I hope you all are staying safe and staying sane. So our guest today, JoEl, is an old friend of Robby, and Robby has been saying for 2 years now that we should do this interview, and Zoom has made it really simple to record interviews. I used to have so much trouble where we'd have an entire conversation on Skype and it wouldn't record because it was some shady software that, long story short, Zoom is made for recording meetings because it's made for work, so it makes sense to record your meetings, because the worst thing is when people can't agree what was said at the meeting. So if you have a recording, then that solves that issue. And so, without further ado, let's bring in our co-host, Robby Strong. Greetings, Freder. How have you been?
Oh, good, Brother Pymander. I'm talking to you from a very cold morning in the van cave. It's beautiful. My secretary, Miss Gruffles, is right here with me. What time is it right there where you are in India?
It is 8:19 p.m.
Okay.
And there in California?
Here in California, it is 6:49. You might occasionally hear parrots going by.
Nice. Early morning.
Yes, the workers working on a nearby house. It is amazing. We've left this long, beautiful book of messages back and forth since you first moved to India, and it could fill multiple volumes of just extraordinary things, extraordinary experiences and thoughts since you left America.
Yeah, some of it I think is, sort of just ramblings and other, but sometimes, there's some insights.
I think there's a lot that our children will pick through to write an amazing book someday. That's what I think.
Uh-oh. Here, why don't I give people a little sample of what we're talking about? Here's a couple of audios back and forth between me and Robby over the past couple of years.
Militia members that might be lurking.
So the DNA sigils. Almost. I think if those elements were reversed. But the colors are correct.
He was the Red String Raider. The use of cannabis and mushrooms, but mainly cannabis.
I think this might be the result of a time-traveling troll. I don't mean like the mythical creature troll, but like someone's trolling us.
Okay, I have no idea what just played, but I'll work that out during the editing process tomorrow.
I mean, good grief! The just the chapters, just your travels through different parts of India, and my travels through all kinds of strange experiences
legal
of desert mysticism with performance art groups and anarchists and activist radicals, and sometimes sleeping in tents in the streets with the same people I've been doing performance art with, occupying government buildings, getting shot with rubber bullets, getting thrown in jail for the cause of human rights.
With a priest.
Yes, with a priest and a rabbi, actually, at one particular time. I mean, we were all sitting in the driveway of the ICE building, surrounded by cops, and there was the Anglican priest of All Saints Episcopalian Church just down the way, and there was a rabbi, and I was like, "Hey guys, so a priest and a rabbi and an anarchist walk into an ICE building," and that was the joke, and then the cops drug us away.
I think I mentioned to you, but definitely I didn't mention on the podcast. There was a point when I was in Kathmandu, and I was in a restaurant, OR2K for my fellow Nepal travelers, in the Kathmandu one, and I saw someone I recognized from when I was in Pokhara, so I went over and sat at that big group table. They had just finished a Vipassana. There was like maybe 15 people, and so
what year roughly was that?
When did I start traveling? I think it was 2017. I was talking to my friend from Sweden, I think, and I was talking about you, and I mentioned that you had sent a box of horse poo. Oh, this isn't PG, horse shit, to Steve Mnuchin, as returning your gift of the tax bill that he had just approved. Right?
Yeah, completely scam giveaway to his rich oligarch friends on the backs of the working class.
I was talking about that, and there was a guy there from Tehran, and he leaned over and he overheard the conversation. He's like, "Wait a minute, you know the guy that did that?" And I was like, "Wait, what?" And he was like, "I read about that. We read about that in the newspaper in Tehran."
A random guy from Tehran knew who I was?
Met random guy that I met in Kathmandu. And he was like, wow.
That makes me so happy.
He was impressed that I knew the guy that did that.
Yeah, I love that you sent me a Hebrew newspaper and the story of me in Hebrew with my picture and a giant pile of horse poop behind me. For those who don't know the story, after this Christmas tax bill was passed, I had a box horse manure wrapped in Christmas paper, and I hand delivered it to the Secretary of Treasury of the United States, the very Lord of Mammon in the heart of Babylon, because he has a house high up in Bel Air.
They thought it was a bomb, and the Secret Service came and shut down the street.
Yes, it was
bomb squad.
It was all in the spirit of Abby Hoffman. I knew that technically I had not broken any laws, and the police officers they interviewed the next day said, yeah, technically no laws were broken, but I still had Secret Service showing up at my yard 2 days after, and also in my place of employment, which was very entertaining for my coworkers to behold.
Plus the death threats online.
Yeah, multiple death threats. I still get those occasionally from the various fascists that I've been known to occasionally get into street brawls with. And
there was something recent that happened, right?
Oh, the most recent incident, yeah, I'm still pending trial. I'm a little nervous because the way things go on the national levels could dictate what happens. 2 weeks ago, I went out to my place of refuge, this very sacred spot out in Joshua Tree. I call it Yeshua Tree since I'm kind of a Christian Gnostic. And it's where I go to get completely away from civilization. There's no electrical poles or cars or houses for miles. You can literally look into infinity, and it's really rare that you can get that on land. And there's caves I like to go to, and I like to just strip down and be completely bare without anything but water, and of course mushrooms. And that's where I get in touch with God. And I was out there purging my mind and getting ready to come back to the city renewed and ready for action when I was driving through the village of Joshua Tree. And I had just purchased my coffee. Oh yes, first coffee in days. This is going to be so good. And I look over, and there's a really interesting looking character, a young black hippie boy with a nice afro and kind of a long flowing robe. And he was reading something triumphantly with a book. And he also had a little drum. And I was driving past, and I was still kind of waking up and thinking to myself, oh, what a neat character. Maybe I should go back and see what he's up to. But he's got a fascinating thing that he's saying. And no sooner did I had that thought, that two cop cars just come zipping past me like they were pulling up on John Dillinger. And they pulled up on both sides of the corner where this guy was. And this is cornered to an open lot. So there's not anybody being at all put out by this young man just on a corner in open lot. Miss Gruffles. I know Miss Gruffles gets really fired up about this story. And so when I saw them right up on that young man, the first thing I thought of was the news story that we see at least once a week here in America of racist police officers pulling up on unarmed black men and firing without even asking questions.
Right.
And so because I'm an activist for this cause, and just because I myself have legitimate PTSD from seeing this over and over, I flipped the car around, drove through the opposite lane of traffic just so I could create a big enough distraction so they wouldn't shoot. And right as the four were pulling up around him with looks on their face that said, "We're going to fuck you up, boy," I rolled down my window and yelled, "This is one black man that is not going to die today. I am filming this. Do not hurt this boy." And "What'd you say to me, boy?" And pretty soon they had pulled my wrist almost double behind my arm and yanked me out of the vehicle and threw me in the back of the squad car where I spent the rest of the day. They let me out after dark. And mind you, the San Bernardino police station is a good 2 miles from the village of Joshua Tree, where there's nothing but desert and highway. And I didn't have socks on when I was doing this. I was still waking up. And so when the officer comes running over the car, I quickly just stick my feet in my hiking boots. So there I am with boots that aren't with no laces. They give my shoelaces back to me, and I'm walking through the dark, through the desert, beside the highway, just wondering if the racist cops that got off on roughing me up are just waiting for me, and just knowing that any moment could be my last. I finally make it, and I have a dead phone, so I finally make it back into town. There's still a Dollar General store open where I'll go buy a battery charger, and I limp over somewhere where I can go over to a 7-Eleven and get some water and charge my phone, call my next of kin, how to retrieve my car out of impound the next day. And judging by all the giant white pickup trucks with Trump flags in the parking lot of that particular impound lot, they were more than glad to inconvenience me, along with the Teutonic San Bernardino sheriff that threw me in the holding cell.
Oh, man.
They got a lot of singing, though, for me. In the sense that I pulled out every old gospel bluegrass tune I could think of, every marching song I could think of, and I sang at the top of my lungs like Paul and Silas for a good 9 hours while I was in there.
Nice. So, just really quickly, can you give us the rundown on JoEl?
JoEl Meeks is a nanotechnologist.
Mm-hmm.
And he's kind of a savant, kind of like Jack Parsons. You know how Jack Parsons just started showing up at Caltech and saying, I've got some good ideas, and he was laughed out of town until he started making sense.
Yeah.
He kind of did this, oddly enough, at Caltech. And now this is a man that did have prior experience and expertise. He got major science awards in high school and college for he actually got a patent for his high school science project.
Nice.
And it was that very patent that opened up these doors for him, so that now he is running his own nanotechnology labs out of a university. One of the interesting things about JoEl too is that the week before I did my Stephen Mnuchin stunt, I was doing a Golden Dawn winter solstice ritual with JoEl and with a whole group of people at an unnamed temple in the hills above Los Angeles County.
Saturnalia, right?
Yes, Saturnalia. And I had made soma out of mushrooms and cannabis oil and some lovely autumnal spices. And it was one of the most glorious, beautiful rituals I've ever performed. And JoEl has this deep bass voice that you'll soon hear. And this voice is so resonant that every time he walks in my yard and starts talking, my dog, Miss Gruffles, immediately starts humping his leg. I'm not kidding. She never humps anyone's legs but JoEl, and I think it's because of the deep bass resonances. But he performed in his beautiful voice the Orphic Hymn to the Sun in that particular Saturnalian ritual that was very highly visionary for some of us. There was a popular psych pop band's bass player that was there also. I won't say who that is because he's kind of paranoid about these things. But it was in conversations with him and JoEl after this ritual that the ideal to deliver the horse manure to Stephen Mnuchin came up. And it was a very alchemical act. And since I'm a Capricorn and it was the time of Saturn, it just made sense that I would deliver sulfur as almost a prophetic message to the Secretary of Treasury of Mammon. That's right, Miss Gruffles. I hope you can hear her cute little voice. She looks so adorable right now in her green little Christmas sweater, Edward. You should see it.
Was that sulfur in an alchemical sense or in the sense of like fire and brimstone?
Both. And manure is often equated with sulfur, alchemically.
Yeah.
And his mother, she's a black woman from the American South who does a type of ritual magic that's very African and very Kabbalah at the same time. Miss
Sweet.
Gruffles, you're about to hear the voice. The voice of the Orphic hymn of the sun. Oh, he's here. Yes.
Greetings, Strutter. Welcome to the Esoterinerd podcast.
Wow.
Oh,
How are you?
Guys, I am very much alive. I'm very much aware. I'm more blessed than I deserve, and I'm honored to be with you all today.
Thank you, and likewise.
How are you, Edward? I've heard a lot of wonderful things about you, and you're someone who, let me just clarify who you are to me. So Vitruvian Man is something that I had written a series of short stories about as, you know, a template. And, you know, there's very few people who I see attempt to model the third form of that. And when I saw that as a profile photo, I think that was one of the things, most unique things that stood out about you. And I'm going to tell you that I am no respecter of persons. I'm no spiritual guru. I'm just a guy, and I know some things about some things. But I've been blessed to meet billionaires, senators, Nobel laureates, actors, musicians. And I would like to put you in the category of influential people. The ancillary to that is that you come with high, you know, regard, and, you know, Robby holds you in high esteem. And, you know, that's why I say I'm really honored to be here, because I know I can learn from you. I don't know. I don't know how to get to Asia right now, but it's on the list.
JoEl, someday, JoEl.
Yeah.
Someday I would like us to take our sons together and go hiking in the Himalayas and do a sacred trek with very honored Edward here.
Only if we get to spend a week in Bhutan.
Oh,
all
definitely.
Right.
Oh, hell yeah.
Okay. Then you got it. Easy.
Bhutan is so
Easy.
beautiful. It's like how I would imagine. It's how I would imagine Tibet would be if the Chinese hadn't occupied it, and if it was inside of like a Ghibli movie.
Oh God.
Wow.
The happiest place on earth, and a good buddy of mine went, who actually trained in Kung Fu at Wudon. So I'm the black Jew at Torah camp when we're 15, and he's the Chinese Jew. And
Nice.
we're the oddballs Orthodox Torah camp, and that's how we became friends. And so he was in the military, worked for MasterCard, all this stuff, and he's got a Tai Chi app now. But anyways, He said Bhutan, one of his most favorite places in the world, and when he said it's the most happiest place on earth, he said Disneyland can't hold a candle to it. So he said you will feel it. You will feel the electron. And that's what brings us together is, you know, the law of magnetism and attraction. You know, it's like you said, we've got to go on a week-long hike. You know, Robby and I have visualized things, and they've happened, you know, when living together, where two or more are gathered. That's why the triangle is so important, the power of three. When we come together and we visualize and we speak it, it's the resonance. We just need to catch up to it, right? Because only the mind exceeds space and time. So this is the way that we're able to do. There's people who talk about quantum jumping and trekking on the continuum and regression and things like that, and those are all amazing techniques. But for me, it's really speaking, doing, and reversing engineering your way back, and then incremental steps.
Now, speaking of reverse engineering, JoEl, I've likened you into Jack Parsons in that you kind of cold walked into Caltech when you began your career in nanotechnology, and you said that it started one night when we were walking around the neighborhood. I would like you to kind of take it from there and tell us how in the world you ended up cold walking into Caltech and starting a nanotechnology company.
Wow. Yeah, man. I was a kid that loved to tinker because I am a worrisome and open-minded troubleshooter. I think at my core, I've always been a worried child. I've always been a very open-minded child, and I've always been a tinkerer. And so fast forward to when we met, I hadn't touched a carbon nanotube since probably 2003 when I was at Florida State. And the year after, Harold Kroto went, who was part of the research team that got the Nobel Peace Prize, or Nobel Prize in Chemistry, in 96 for the same nanotechnology. They got a Nobel Prize for buckyballs. Nanotubes are elongated versions of the buckyball. And so
Buckminster Fuller's geodome?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
exactly.
buckyball. I hadn't heard that expression before.
60 carbon atoms arranged like a soccer ball. You can also refer to them as fullerenes. Buckyballs were Buckminster Fuller moniker. But then when you take the tessellated pattern of carbon atoms and make a sheet, it's graphene. When you roll that sheet up into a tube, it's a nanotube, and it carries with it a lossless transmission of particles and waves. So this is electricity, this is thermal, this is sound. So the things that you're able to do with carbon nanotubes and any of the carbon structures, and it's very interesting because we're talking about 6. So, Tesla said if man only understood the power of 3, 6, and 9, we would incrementally, probably an order of magnitude, leap in technology and nascent and novel products. And so just trekking back, carbon 6 electrons, and then you have your neutrons and your protons. But the thing about it is the valence, the tessellated structure of the hexagon with the carbon. You get these bonds, there's sp2 bonds that make diamonds so strong. They have 4. Carbon nanotubes have those 4. Then because they're hexagons, they have 2 double sp bonds, and we don't see those anywhere else really in nature. So
okay, so that's like a carbon with 2 extra electrons in the valence?
So no, what you're looking at is so think about diamond is a parallelogram tessellation. So imagine parallelograms stacked on each other, and at the 4 corners, sp2 bonds. sp2 bonds being covalent bonds, some of the most strongest of the forces, right, at the atomic level. Because your weak forces are, van der Waals and static, and your strong forces are ionic covalent bonds. So sp2 is what makes diamonds so strong. Double covalent bonds. What the nanotubes have are those 4, but you're dealing with a hexagon, so you've got 2 additional points. Those additional points carry double sp2 bonds. We rarely ever see those, and that's what got me fascinated. So bring it to 2013, 2012. Robby and I were walking through the neighborhood.
Hey, JoEl, can I get you to get a little more in the microphone? I'm having a little trouble hearing you, bud.
No, I apologize.
I miss your resonant, beautiful bass voice. I was telling him about when you performed the Orphic Hymn of the Sun.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
Proceed. Go ahead, though.
No, what I say is, I wanted to see if I could run you through the car, because I'm just sitting in the car at the
there you
that
go.
sounds great.
I hear you much better now. Hallelujah.
Yeah. Oh, you can hear me better? Okay. I guess
Much
it's
better.
fine. But what I wanted to say is, in 2012, Robby and I think that was really our best year. And it was one of the better years of my life, only in terms of where my focus started to go. The thing about Robby's relationship and my relationship is that I always wanted a brother, and I'm a Southerner with no accent, and I have a lot of that Good Samaritan, that story vibed with me. and I don't really know anyone who epitomizes that more than Robby. He's taken up arms with, you know, burdens he doesn't carry, and he's put his money where his mouth is, and he's put skin in the game and fights where I didn't have the brass and the balls. I didn't, and I would be afraid. And I've seen Robby do things without fear that I think are incredible, and they're meaningful. And I've seen him be a part of amazing music groups. I've seen him create music on the fly. I've seen.
I want to hear about you. I want to hear about you, though, JoEl.
We'll get to me. We'll get to me. But I just, you know,
it was so fun living with you. I mean, that house was like this vibrant community house right in the middle of Los Feliz, this hip little neighborhood. When it was still like funky and affordable, sort of.
It was everything I'd come to LA for. I started it in that house. Everything I'd really come there for in terms of work, in terms of career, getting back to nanotech, it all came back. And I don't think I can't say that something started there, a brotherhood, and Robby's the only person that I've done Invocation of Nakiel with. And I'm going to tell you something. If that didn't pop financially and manifest exactly 2 weeks to the day, that was one of the most powerful rituals I've ever done. And I've never done acid. I've only done mushrooms, but I get visuals when I go in really deep. And Robby will tell you there's degrees at which I will I'll have my system. Usually I go full Zen when I do a lot of ritual work, tarot, divination, runes, all that. I will imbibe in cannabis, and I will imbibe in certain, you know, other psilocybin and things like that. But
liturgical plants.
Right. For me,
no, here's one of the interesting things. Like JoEl and I both use these rituals. I use them to jumpstart my activism, and he uses them to jumpstart his nanotechnology, which is basically like creation from the atomic level on up.
It starts what it does is what, in my experience, and everyone's different, right? Everyone's different. This is a plant, and you know, when we take in scent is another dimension. So, you know, make sure that when we're speaking, we're at least at dimension 6 or 7, depending on where you want to do the numbers, right? Because space and time is 4 and 5, you know, congruently, and they're not mutually exclusive. Much like electromagnetism, they are not the same, but they're not mutually exclusive.
Non-dual.
So when we're dealing with scents, we're dealing with odor. It's another dimension. It is. And so, you know, you deal with a plant, or you deal with a mushroom, or
directly.
You deal with you are always invoking something with sound and with scent. So that has been my experience. So whereas I will gain you know, an increase in theta wave production, which is great for the initial genesis of creativity. When it comes to the alpha waves, which I naturally have because I'm type A, I will find some of the analytical gears. They don't tend to be oiled and greased as well. And this is with habitual use. This is not the way Joe Rogan says to smoke. This is, I'm an all or nothing guy with marijuana. Either it's my coffee or it offends me. It's completely black and white.
Well,
it's very
what I want to know, JoEl, is how you've used like the entheogenic plants combined with ritual work. That I know your mom, she's an adept in ritual magic.
Yes,
I want to know how you use these things combined to come up with scientific discoveries. Like you've literally done this.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's things that well, first off, my mom is a powerful woman, and she is a sacred woman, and she is worked with, through her I met Marianne Starn, Gavin and Yvonne Frost, Orion Foxwood, Benny Hinn, Bishop Jordan, there's one more person who's really.
So how does she know all these people, and what kind of magic would you say she practices?
I mean, my mom knows these people because she attracts these people. So you want to, you want to realize that you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out with purposefully. But then you always keep that changing, right? Because you want to become, right? If my perspective is 4 drones that look in opposite direction, and God is, the infinite set of drones, right? I'm always trying to get there. So always more people, always more reflection, right? Of the universe expressing itself through humans, right?
Yeah.
And so my mom is me on really just her magnetism's turned up. I think that has a lot to do with our voice. You don't really forget our voices. They command your attention, but we also have to modulate that. And that's something that over years.
So just to kind of familiarize people with the narrative of kind of why you kind of landed on the map as a scientist.
Yeah.
Start where we were in the village back that year when you decided to go ahead and walk your research into Caltech, and how it went from there till you actually had your own laboratory.
Okay, I will try to give you the 90-second version. Brevity's not my strong. I like to give
not 90 seconds, as long as it takes. I just love the story.
I like to give background. So now you know who some of the key players are. So it's 2012, and for some reason I had been looking at black holes and time warps again. It was a book written by Kip Thorne, who went on to win the Nobel Prize in 2018 in physics for the discovery of gravitational waves. And the proof of that through LIGO with Rainier Weiss, who I also met in 2015 in New York. So the way this happened was I had a dream, actually, when I was awake. So I had a vision, and there's different ways people interpret how to quantify a vision, but I received imagery that I was able to draw on 2 different pieces of paper.
Wow.
And I was told at that point, you're going to go to Caltech and talk to the 2 people that you've always wanted to talk to.
And you had that dream when we were living together in the village?
Yeah. I wrote it down on 2 yellow pieces of paper. I don't remember if I showed you or Anna, but I showed my mom, and I told my mom, on this piece of paper, there's AG, and on this piece of paper, there's 3 circles. I have to give this one to one Nobel Prize winner, and then I have to give this one to a guy whose book I read at 15, Black Holes and Time Warps. And I don't know why, but one of them's going to call me back, and one isn't. And we're going to go from there. And my mom was like, all right, if you're feeling it, do it. I did it. And about a week later, I get a call from Kip Thorne's assistant, and she says, am I speaking with JoEl Meeks-Matous? And I said, yeah. And she said, for some reason, Kip Thorne wants to let you know that he'll be free for a meeting anytime this next week from this time to this time. And I was like, okay, I appreciate that. And she's like, what did you tell him? And I said, I didn't tell him anything. I left him a note. She goes, okay, yeah, he's got about a 6-month wait time because he's filming a movie and he's not meeting with anyone right now. In fact, he doesn't even have office hours a semester, and he's got grad students trying to meet with him. I have about a waiting list of 40 people, so I'm not really quite sure how you got him to leave the set of Interstellar, which I came out to find out later it was Interstellar.
No way.
He
Yeah,
was advising?
Yes.
And how did you land on his radar in the first place? Was it the patent you got at the high school science project?
No, the note. He never.
Okay.
The way he first met me virtually was I emailed him at 15 And I said, I read your book. I want to come to Caltech one day. He said, find me when you get to college age.
Beautiful.
And I never emailed him back. And he said he didn't recall that email, but he said, not to sound grandiose, but it happens a lot. I get a lot of those emails. And he's like, maybe I do kind of remember it. But the thing that stuck out to me was this. I didn't know what I was drawing, and it meant something to him. And just following this vision of these 3 circles, I came up with my own avenue of conversation, because I wasn't able to talk about the universe interacting on itself in terms of stat time, right? So after I drew this, it's like, oh, conceptually, we can look at this as a model. Now you can talk to Kip Thorne as almost a peer, because now you can come with 3 circles and talk about contracted time, actualized time, and expanded time, right?
You had a patent in nanotechnology prior to this, right? This
is theoretical physics. This is all stuff at the fundamental Higgs boson. This is all that type of stuff. The nanotech stuff, again, that happened at 15, 16 maybe, at governor's school. I needed a science fair project, and I wanted to make the lightest, strongest thing. Inter-aerogels, the lightest thing man's ever made, with nanotubes, the strongest thing man's ever discovered. So I put those together, and what it made was a tunable product that can store energy and transmit energy, and it could also do this with waves. And
so nothing major, just the average high school science project.
I mean, I talked about a lot of things with that. I said, nanotubes will deliver drugs, and that was in 99, and I'm working with a guy doing it now. He's got an 850 nanometer, sort of carbon nanotube missile or plane, and it's got a payload of drug molecules, but at a nanoscopic amount, so they're not toxic and it doesn't cause the collateral damage. And the only other closest technology to this was quantum dot technology, where it created magnetized drug compounds for better contrasting, and you could use the MRI to move the drug because it was magnetized to one center.
Give us some historical context for how you got there. So like he got your note, and then what happened after that?
He got my note. We were all baffled. He met up with me in a week. We talked for an hour, and at the end of it, he said 2 things to me. He said, you should go back to school and prove this because it's very interesting. My son went back at 30. He's one of the best architects where he lives. And then he also said, I can't be on your advisory board because I don't understand nanotechnology. And he said, maybe we can meet again. So 3 things. And that was it. And he said, I'm working on a film, and I can't tell you who's directing and what it's about. And that's it.
So how did that lead to you running a project in the laboratory?
So a lot of things happened between Kip Thorne at Caltech, and because I went back to Caltech, I talked to some people, didn't go to Caltech, took some business classes at Pasadena City College, and then I went to New York to work with the guy. Remember when I mentioned the guy with the cancer drug that's magnetized? I went to New York in 2015 when I moved to New York to try to work for that guy. I wanted to join his startup. He had great technology. I tried to sell it, and his COO said, we don't need him. We've got people on our own. I don't see why he should come on board. And he looks like he's an actor, like he's dressed not in a suit. He doesn't have a PhD. And about a month later, my mom said, you should go to this TechCrunch event at a bar. And I was tired, and I went. And I talked to John Biggs. And
wait, this is in New York?
Yeah, this was in New York. And what happened in the next 60 days was John Biggs joined my advisory board. He invited me to TechCrunch Disrupt. 3 tickets, $3,000 a piece. I presented at TechCrunch Disrupt. My first pitch was Peter Thiel, who was an investor in Facebook, Airbnb, and Lyft. I also
Your first pitch was with Peter Thiel?
Yeah, he walked up to me at TechCrunch Disrupt. A guy named Matt Grimm, who was one of the founding members of Palantir, which is a $20 billion company that does deep data dives for the government and tracks terrorists and sex traffickers down and all types of crazy stuff with big data. But anyways, yeah, Matt Grimm came to me at TechCrunch Disrupt and he said, "You've got something with nanotubes." And I talked to him about it, and I was in his office 72 hours later. And that's really when the nanotech came back to the forefront. And for the last, we incorporated in 2016. For the last 4 years, it's been a journey. It's been things that I had been exposed to my whole life, metaphysics, converging, and it's not time to how can I say this properly? Put up or show up,
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is that, Tesla only created magic because he showed it to people. He didn't make anything that's not there. Wi-Fi's been around since I think 1832, something like that, 1840. Fiber optics, 100 years before we got Google Fiber, almost. So all these things that move in the air around us, particles, there's a way to harness them that's sustainable. There's a way to harness them like the Egyptians and wear it. There's a way to use it to move objects that man can't move with modern day equipment, and cut objects man can't cut with a diamond saw or a laser today. There's a way to harness all this technology. The Dogons say that we have about we have exactly 266 elements. Our periodic table doesn't even hit 180 yet. So there is another layer to the next generation of
the Dogons. That's if I'm not mistaken, one of the earliest tribal narratives on record, right? And they have some of the earliest pyramids in Africa.
And they're into the Dark Star series.
That's correct.
Connect that to what you do specifically in the laboratory.
Yeah, my genealogy, just FYI, my mom's 19% Menorcan, so she's traced her genealogy to 1450 Spain since we've been friends. And so the island of Menorca has weird pyramids that aren't anywhere else. Look that up. That's my mom. I don't know. Anyways, just why she's so, on another level. I didn't get as much. But what I wanted to say was the Dogon had all the elements. They don't share them. We can't speak the language anyway. So it's truly a part of the Egyptian mystery school. But we're at a time where all this is going to come back now. This is my prediction. This is where I go from sort of scientist to futurist. And there's a dance because I'm not an engineer. And that's why I sort of flunked out of engineering. I'm not an engineer because I don't care so much like how. It's always been why, and it's always been kind of how long. So
but you have engineers working for you though, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I got engineers because you can't build without them.
How did you get engineers? Like, that is so cool. I mean,
I was leaving an airplane.
I want engineers.
I was leaving an airplane trip from New York in 2016, and a guy named Jeremy, who looked like Jerry Garcia, who I have the same birthday as, Omen, is behind me, and he's mentioning, he heard me say graphene, and that sparked a 4-hour conversation, and he's been my lead fabricator ever since.
Huh.
The universe will bring you who you need. Always. So graphene is an interesting material. I don't like it because I don't work in one dimension, and I don't know anything that should work in one dimension. And I mean that in every way it's intended to sound. Graphene is very difficult to produce the real McCoy. I've called people out. I've written articles on Quora about it. I don't work with it. And the reason why I don't work with it is because I think that a lot of the graphene hype came after the promise of buckyballs and nanotubes, and the work was too hard.
What's the difference between graphene and nanotubes for those of us who are scientifically not so literate?
Right. So if you take 6 dots on a piece of paper and connect the lines so it makes a hexagon, create a tessellated pattern on the whole paper of hexagons touching each other.
Like Flower of Life?
That whole sheet is what graphene looks like. So chicken wire. And
before exclaims the pentagram, and behind us the 6th grade graphene.
Not graphene.
Go ahead, sorry.
Because nothing moves in one dimension. We don't, we are not one dimensional, and I can't think of much that is. I know that when you roll up that sheet of paper, you make it 3D. And I also know that when you have concentric tubes within it, you get something very similar to a tesseract, which is a 4-dimensional representation in 3D space.
And you manipulate these things in a laboratory?
We grow them.
Grow them?
And we...
Wait. What does that mean, grow them?
Well, I mean, I have a theory about carbon nanotubes, and my theory hasn't been proven yet. But my theory is that anytime carbon changes forms, nanotubes are being produced, because you are looking at the most, anytime we look at metal as an element, we're looking at the most potent and the most resolute form with the highest structural integrity. So these show up in nature for carbon as nanotubes. We don't have all forms of all elements. We can't hit the triple point of all elements on the planet. We can with CO2. CO2 can be a solid, and it can flow like a gas, and it can still be liquid, all at the same time. We can do that with very little pressure, and that's how we make aerogels. The carbon nanotubes are grown by either breaking down larger carbon structures into smaller ones, or building smaller particles into precipitates, and then they're found in the soot. So if you have a carbon carrying gas, methane makes good nanotubes. That's CH3, or you have acetylene, C2H2. Anything that's carrying carbon in a gas, we can break it down with a catalyst, grow it on a substrate, and you'll get nanotubes. And then there's inert gases you can feed to get different properties, where they function like a semiconducting material, like silicon, or they function like a conducting material, like copper, only 800 times better. So this is what you get from these carbon nanotubes.
What do you use them for?
Well, you can use them for a variety of things. They're the strongest fibers we've got. So you've got tennis rackets, you've got hockey sticks, baseball bats, reinforced with carbon nanotubes. You can utilize carbon nanotubes, light absorption, to create Vanta black, the blackest black material on Earth. Absorbs 99.
That to me sounds deeply alchemical. Like,
it is
blacker than black. I mean, that's like more sulfur than sulfur.
Egyptian mystery school, blackest black, Negredo.
Wow.
Right, for component, a philosopher's stone. Right, I'm bringing it to you.
Yeah.
Actually, that's getting too much into our work. I already said too much, man. See, I told you not to go too deep.
I've heard people talk about
that's for the book. We're
like
writing
space
a book,
elevators.
We want to or not? We're writing a book.
All right, I'm down. I'm totally
in the book.
I'm totally down.
My mom made a movie about Negredo. Nanotubes are in it. I'm in it too. She's cutting it. There
Your
you
mom
go.
made a movie. What's it called?
It's called Negredo. It's
Oh,
on
it's called
IMDb.
Negredo.
Yeah, look on IMDb, JoEl Meeks-Matous. You'll see it. It's
I can't wait to see this.
Nice.
Yeah, post is expensive, man, and it takes time, and we weren't rushing, you know, and it comes when it comes, and that's that, you know.
So you guys make movies in addition to technology?
I mean,
Wow.
she does. I only distribute films. I haven't done any this year because of COVID. I did 3 last year, indie stuff. But yeah, Netflix, Hulu, PlayStation.
So you never get bored. You like work 48 hours a day. That's incredible. Edward had a question about an application of nanotechnology in regards to space, I think.
Yeah, space elevators. Those where you have a stationary orbit and you can build an elevator up to it.
Did you read my pitch deck?
No, I haven't.
No, I'm being facetious, but I'm also a little miffed because it doesn't sound as original when you guys bring it up. But it's okay. A lot of people played Halo. Anyways, the point is that you know, orbital tethering systems is on our radar. We want to try to line up for that around 2024, 2025.
And you say we? Who's we?
Can't get into that right now.
Okay, all right.
That's under NDA.
Secret stuff.
But hey, I've written about it on Quora, and I'll tell you, they make more nanotubes than anybody. And
oh wow,
if you look on Facebook and you scroll back not that far, you'll see me in France signing a partnership with them in 2018. So it's not hard to find. I let people do their due diligence, but I will not.
This sounds exciting.
Where I can be legally bound, but you know.
So really cool space shit's going to happen in a couple of years, and you're going to be a part of it. That's what you're saying.
I will say this. I know the guys in aerospace. I'm not super focused on aerospace right now. I am focused on minimum viable products in coatings and the drug delivery, also high performance materials, so strengthening materials, batteries, capacitors, and then we will get to the elevator. The elevator requires a lot of material, a lot of
too much,
a lot of it.
Maybe an asteroid worth.
I mean, I got a great way to make it. I'm working with the best guys in the world, and it's a slow burn, but I really think that we can get there. And I think what the space elevator will do is I think that technology will be something that everyone can utilize in a real Egyptian kind of way.
What do you mean?
Akhenaten only. I only mean Akhenaten. I only mean the only monotheistic pharaoh whose name they scratched off everything and buried somewhere else. I only mean that one. Akhenaten. The one pharaoh.
Connect the dots for me there.
I'm gonna tell you.
There's a movie called The Egyptian. He's sorry.
Akhenaten understood what I believe to be the plasma. The plasma, the energy in the air that flows like a liquid, but it's a gas, right? The plasma, the pure energy. Akhenaten was the one that took the Eye of Ra and changed it to the sun disk with rays coming out. And he said these rays were God, the God.
Tomb Ray?
God you cannot see. The God, right?
Yeah.
The one above all. And I believe there is a master creator. So do my Hindu friends. They just understand that, well, you wear a lot of hats when you're God. And the best way to wear a different hat is to wear a whole different body. Keeps people organized. You got to compartmentalize for humans. Then some people
connect Akhenaten to
well, I just
to carbon for me.
Catholicism to Hinduism with the polytheistic monotheism, all stemming from Akhenaten, right? The first one we have on record doing this. Nimrod's debatable. Metatron's really the first, but take it back a notch. when I say go Egyptian with a suborbital tethering system, I mean capturing solar flare energy.
Oh, okay.
I mean bringing it down. Something for everyone. Not NASA. Not Elon Musk.
Capturing
Right.
solar flare energy.
I'm sorry. Brevity's not my strong suit. That's the end.
Wow.
That's the end. I was
So
going
if
to
they-
give you all the pieces in between.
What are the applications of captured solar energy, solar
Pardon?
flare energy? What would be the applications of captured energy from solar flares?
I mean, we're not going to be able to use it on Earth we got maybe $1.50, until the honeybee population just isn't sustainable. And those are good numbers. That's me being optimistic about it.
Wait, are you talking about human
overpopulation?
extinction?
No, I just mean that I don't get into dystopian futures. I only look at what my peers say. And my peers believe that greenhouse gases coupled with existing solar flares, coupled with disease and the lack of pollination, gives the planet at best 250 years.
That's what I've heard.
I'm of the school of scientists that believe it's about 100 years before that. So it's only our great-great-grandkids who get to live on Titan, Venus, or Mars, right? So you've got 3 options. You have to cryo-freeze 5 years to make the journey to Titan, and you have to terraform, and there needs to be a little bit of genetic modification to account for all the nitrogen. Venus is fine. Soviets wanted to do the Venusian project before it ever was on NASA's radar, but Venus is only bad below the clouds. You've got, floating ports, then the air is breathable.
Well, wouldn't it be a lot easier just to fix the Earth than to go to a different planet?
We're past the point of no return at this point, man. And if you don't believe me, just track Farmer's Almanac the past 10 years.
Wow.
And then look at the chaos and the synchronicity. There was
my JPL context said 3 generations. Yeah.
I mean, if you want to look at Pleiadian cycle, that's the big one. If you want to look at from a loss of magnetic integrity, which is what happened. It's the Earth's got a field with a certain number of particles in it, and we're putting more metals in that field. There's 2 holes in the ozone. Why we don't talk about it anymore, right? No one brings it up in the news. It's not a point anymore. It was when I was in my teens.
Because it's a done deal?
There's a hole forming. There are 2. One was closed. So we are past the point of no return in one way. Do I believe man can overcome? Do I rebuke that in Jesus' name? I can.
Hallelujah.
I will.
Hey,
I believe.
What are the applications of carbon nanotechnology for removing carbon from the air? Is that possible?
We've done it. We've been able to take greenhouse gases and create carbon nanotubes, carbon black. So 30% of all your tires on your bike, on your car, the plane that you've flown on, 30% of that tire's carbon black. And it's just a more carbon that's an emulsifier in rubber and also aids in the so your tires don't melt. Not your tires, maybe Formula One tires, but anyways, we're getting this stuff by converting pollution. So we're not carbon neutral. We're actually carbon negative. So
you could take carbon out of the atmosphere and make it into things.
Yeah, we've been doing that. That's one thing we've been doing. It's something that is not scaled because we've not had a customer pay for one. I haven't in America. My partners have one running, 2 in India, 1 in South Africa, and the next one will be England. I'm working on Germany and I was talking to Exxon. When Trump took us out of the Paris Accords, no one felt an initiative because any talk of the carbon tax relief, the carbon market we lost under Cheney was null and void. Now, the one good thing I can say about Biden, I don't like how he addresses African Americans. I don't like
interesting.
that about Obama, and I do not like anyone who gives Epstein a pass, which is why Clintons don't get my money anymore, right? So before I sound more conservative than I mean to be, I want to say this about Biden. I like Kamala Harris as far as professionally. I don't agree with some of the things she's done with Black youth in order to, I won't call it shuck and jive, but step and fetch. Sorry, my dad's an attorney. That's another topic. My point is that because companies will receive carbon credits under a new administration, Democrats push for these things. The EPA will have a website. Remember when the EPA website was down for 3 months? I do.
Is that when Trump pretty much gutted the EPA and put a guy in charge of the EPA who said that his sole mission was to dismantle the EPA?
It's hard to get the Keystone Pipeline through when you've got the EPA, right? So this is all fine because, you know, we're talking about how can companies be incentivized to take carbon out of the air with these machines. So they couldn't, and now they can. Yes, we can. No, he can't. This guy might. We will see. Special interests be special interests. Super PACs be super PACs. Earmarked funds be earmarked funds. If I have a lobbyist, I can get government funds. It's a sick game, but everything costs money. Even money costs money. So that's one of those detractors from technology I want to highlight because it is, you know, we got to talk about everything. We got to talk about things that limit people from being able to pursue nanotech. It's these red tape strings you must cut through. Because even if you got the best technology in the world, there's a good chance we're not going to see it. And that's because you can't disrupt but to a point. You can't come out with clean energy tomorrow that will, you know, bankrupt Detroit because it's part of the S&P 500. The good old boys and the Proud Boys and the Black boys and everyone else that's got skin in the Republican game that relies on that will not let you do that. But
so you're saying we need to defeat capitalism before we can save the planet?
You've got to find a way to do both, and this is where I think our black and white pillars really come up visually, metaphorically, allegorically, and literally right now. You've got to give yourself, you know, you've got to have both parties, and then sometimes it's gray. But we've got to have both parties. We've got to always have, you've got to have both parties. And I can't explain it enough. Like we're never gonna have all Democrats and all Republicans. The country doesn't work that way. Federalists, you know, what was that? What Grand Old Party, whatever they were called. You know, it's always been a two-party country, you know, and so I think that the way that affects technology isn't merely this. We have more being funded with manufacturing and products in a conservative controlled house, and we have more being funded to R&D and universities under a liberal or, you know, the DNC controlled House and Senate, because it's not the president. Trump can say anything he wants. It's the Mitch McConnells that grate me. They're the ones that vote down these bills for technology or for, you know, what have you. They're the ones that pass Obamacare version 11 and say Obamacare sucks. They put it down 10 times. So nanotech is no different. There is a nanotechnology initiative I am a part of And it's hard to get people to listen. It's hard to get people to initialize. COVID did not help anything. But I have a good feeling about where things are going to go politically. I think religion has come a long way as well, because if we talk about politics, you have to talk about religion.
It's been weaponized. In fact, I would say that the religious caucus is probably the sole driver of this weird Christo-fascist, anti-intellectual sort of vibe that's dominated American politics right now.
You said caucus.
I plead the fifth on that, and that's not because I can't touch that one on this call. But I will say that you can't talk about politics without talking about religion. But I think that the difference is that when it comes to nanotech, I will not be labeled sorcerer, will not be burned at the stake for doing things that Tesla and Egyptians did, and humans long before that. So
now, how did connected to Amun-Ra? You said there was some type of Amun-Ra connection to the way you think about nanotechnology and science.
I'm only thinking in terms of utilizing that's always been there, and you can't utilize anything that you can't touch, and you can't touch anything you can't see, and you can't see these things with your eyes. So I don't expect anyone to jump on it. It's not drones, it's not the Kardashians, it isn't basketball or football, it's not a car. It's not nothing to do with sex. It's about things that are 100,000 times thinner than a hair on your head.
You're talking about creation from the first atom up.
Well, I mean, these things can cure cancer, right? These things can allow for interstellar travel. These things can stabilize molecules that are only stable for fractions of a second. The trimetaspheres being a good example. And no one's even aware of them. So, but they've always been there, and some people were aware of them. When you say they, once again, well, who made Damascus steel, right? Damascus steel's got carbon nanotubes only on the sharp edge, though. They're not randomly in there. They're in there, seemingly random, but they're only on the cutting edge, though.
How do you think they did it?
I think that they I think they had a couple different things. I think number one, they had all the elements. So we don't have them all, and we don't have them all for two reasons. Number one, some of them cannot be stabilized in everyday air, which is why when they happen, they're fractions of a second. You can't harness them. You can't catch them. You can't. You got to be there when they happen, with the machine, with the laser, with the ions, with the MIT. You have to be there at that level at that time. And then the other way is we manipulate everything to get that one thing. So we take something that has 100 parts and strip 99 parts off to get the one. And that's a couple things. I think the main one is the deluge. So if you really want to talk about where I think the next big travel frontier is, I think it's the ocean. I'm that scientist. So everything that's ever been here is in the ocean. It's not in space. Space has everything that's ever been. Everything that's ever been here is in the water. So that's where I think we're going to have more discovery of additional pieces of periodic table. It's also just being able to create heavier molecules. So the Occam's razor of getting new elements to create new technology is making heavier stuff, and that only takes energy and money. So I think those are really kind of the things that we'll need to do is get the heavier molecules, the heavier elements. I think.
And you think that they had some of the heavier elements in the times of Akhenaten? Like the air was different, or there was. pollution and radiation hadn't killed these elements, or what? How do you think they accessed them?
I mean, these are very simple, low-powered systems for concentrating energy. The waves don't really matter if you call the waves radiation from heat, or if you call it electron flow with a voltage applied, electricity, or if you call it vibration, sound. The pyramids, triangles concentrate, and triangles break apart a spectrum, prism, and obelisk, right? Mm-hmm. So what I know for a fact is that Khufu's pyramids stand above a certain type of water system. It's not random. It's a water system where the limestone carries a certain type of charge, and it's got certain type of compound. It's a certain calcium metal. And when the water runs through it, right, in a certain way, it creates a certain type of field. Why right under Khufu's pyramid? Why under Khufu's pyramid? Why under that one though? It needs to create the circuit. So these are things we can start to draw from. Systems were in place. We know the Egyptians had batteries. Right? Yeah. We know the Egyptians had surgery. We know
and break that down for those who don't know this. Egyptian had batteries. How were these batteries made? What did they look like?
They were clay pots with carbon filaments in there, and they had electrolytes, liquid, and so that was the battery. I mean, you can make one of these with a lemon. You get a lemon for your electrolyte liquid, and for your anode and cathode, you get a copper penny and you get a zinc nail. And you can attach LED leads to each end, and it will light up the bulb. So great first science fair project for Max, by the way.
That sounds amazing.
Do it.
Like how? What is happening
Everyone
there?
loves it. You never drank lemonade? You don't feel what it does to you? You got to drink. I will tell you, I never really got...
Steals your electrons.
Fresh lemons. Yeah, lemonade, fresh lemon juice every morning with coffee will change your life. If you can pair it with Kangen water or a super alkaline water that's got a stable molecular structure, Japan's got all of it. That will change your life, man. Because you want to get rid of the free radicals. So the electrolytes do what they're supposed to do. So you got to balance the equation with the alkaline water because you eat preservatives, but you also eat kimchi. So that's balancing your gut, right? No, it's the science of it, right? So we've got these free radicals, which are parts of molecules. You've got to balance the equation with the alkaline. So once that's done, your electrolytes can do what they're supposed to do. You're a battery. Around 110, 130.
I'm a battery. Wow.
You're running a 110 to 130 voltage right now. Yeah, man. Well, not a voltage, sorry. Current. Yeah, the voltage is, you don't shoot lightning. I'm not there yet. We don't even know what electricity is. You're getting into Fermi Dirac and a lot of Faraday right now. Yeah, this is tricky water. I don't want to say anything on the record.
I like this. This is really getting interesting.
I don't know who's going to hear this stuff, but yeah.
Edward, what are your questions? Since we have this brilliant, barely apprehendable mind on the line.
I'm only
you being an adept in Kabbalah.
I was just thinking about. I know because since this is the Esoterinerd, there's going to be a few people that are like listening, thinking, "What does this have to do with esoterics?" I mean, not that they're right in thinking that. I love all my listeners and everything, but I guess to help bring some clarity of context, why on earth are we talking about nanotechnology on the periodic chart? Just to throw a couple things out there, Isaac Newton, of course, Rosicrucian alchemist in the old school sense, that he kind of invented modern science, physics and calculus.
Right.
And then, of course, you mentioned Jack Parsons. Kind of in a meta picture, like looking at it from a bird's eye view, magic and Kabbalah and esoterica inspires, guides, helps to bring a mental framework into, for example, for you, Robby, the activist work that you do, and
right.
for you, JoEl, the scientific work you do. And for me, it's my focus is kind of elsewhere right now in kind of a Buddhist kind of yogic path. But so yeah, I just kind of wanted to tie it back there a little bit before we start to wrap up. As far as can you tell us a little more about maybe your background and how it relates to this work and the scientific work, the nanotech work? I know you mentioned your dad was a rabbi.
My biological dad is an attorney, or retired as an attorney.
Oh, okay.
My stepdad was a.
That's his religion, attorney.
Yeah, yeah, it's a species. And my stepdad was a social worker who became a rabbi later.
Okay.
In life,
and so you were exposed to Kabbalah at a very young age.
Yeah, right around bar mitzvah age, I was reading Kuntres Ma'ayon, which is a basic text written by the 5th Lubavitcher Rebbe. And so that is really basic stuff. And I dabbled I've read some Zohar. I'm not 40, so I just respect that. I am not married. And I haven't made attempts to be married. And that's you need the polarity to work Kabbalah if you have a penis. Wow. And right, that only goes into the level that you're vibrating at. Yeah,
that's why me and Crowley and Fred or RC are so screwed up.
Yeah, we have to hold our seed. You can't to tap into. No, for me to really start to do alchemical work, I can't lose any seed for at least 60 days. Yeah, no, that's literally my creative spinal fluid.
That's a bummer, man.
It's DNA. I need it to create people or ideas. Anyways, the polarity that you get from marriage and being 40 years of age or having 40 earth souls are two requisites that Judaism asks of you before you dabble into a lot of the heavier Kabbalah. So I've respected Kabbalah with a K for the most part. Kabbalah with a Q. I started looking at some Lesser Key of Solomon about 2 years ago, and it's very useful stuff. Yeah.
And just for anyone who's confused, who's listening, Kabbalah with a K being the more traditional Jewish Kabbalah. Kabbalah with a Q is no reference to QAnon at all. That's just
no.
Hermetic Kabbalah, sort of the Christianized Kabbalah as filtered through the Jesuits that were sort of whispering in secret, and these various mythical monks like Christian Rosenkreutz who secretly passed on these mysteries in whispered corridors within the church.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I say when man came to the West, Kabbalah, started being spelled with a Q, and I think it was out of respect, but I also think that being a sum of all your parts, you become something else. And I think that's to be respected, and I think that's to be honored. But I think something new was created in the Western hemispheres, and I believe that it isn't necessarily, it's not just my special brand of Actorite. that I'm drinking when it comes to religion, at least from a respect level, right? So Crowley, right? Casey, there was a lot being, I mean, Gardner too. That's not my favorite brand of Wicca, but we'll throw him in there too. So there was a lot of new work being done in the West, and that needs to be differentiated.
I'm a
Because
Cunningham Wiccan myself.
word, okay, I can do. I read Witch's Handbook. Like I said, Gavin and Yvonne Frost are good friends of my mom. Threefold all the way. There's stuff I'm taking a lot from with Wicca, LaVeyan Satanism, a lot of the Crowley work. I will not. Entities are. There's just the only thing about Crowley that I will say on record is this: you cannot, you can't do those two things at once spiritually, and it's not sustainable. In other words, you can't. And the two things I'm speaking of are: I will not call something forth to bind it. I will not participate in that ritual. That is my one very few hard limits. I don't do that. I will not attempt to wrestle an angelic force or what I perceive to be one. I will not be foolhardy to think that that's something that I can get away with. Only because I just really have a very strong faith in angel demons, and it is a faith thing, and it's no different than the faith that tells me it's the wind that carries leaves from the tree, and it isn't an invisible guy. It's that same faith. So that's anyways, I said a lot there, but I believe there are patriarchs. Enoch, Abraham, patriarchs of Kabbalah with a K, really Enoch. And the patriarch, in my opinion, Metatron, if you will. And then in the West, we just had a different patriarchy. And it is the same Kabbalah, but it has different things going on. I think you need a balance. I think that's why it's very straightforward when we do rituals on something that looks like a chessboard. Chaos and chance and quantum realm, these are just very, very, very large scales of statistics and probability. Infinitesimal, eternal. And so we try to work with that order. We also try to work with and respect that chaos. And so I do believe that we need both Kabbalias. I believe that we also need left hand and right hand path. I believe that both are important, and I need to really say that because there's left hand and right hand path in Kabbalah with a K, and there's left hand and right hand path in Kabbalah with a Q, and it's nothing more than it's only positrons and electrons. When you know what they do and how they work, then it makes sense, and that's how I feel. Yeah.
That's a fascinating way to think about sex magic, positrons and electrons. Tell me more about that.
I haven't done any sex magic yet because I haven't had a partner I can get tantric with. I haven't studied with anyone who I feel comfortable with. LA has a real laid back, LA's like a giant, like, scarlet letter in America, really, compared to where we grew up. LA doesn't have a real respect for sex, and that's only because, like, pornography is really low vibration, and 90% of the world's porn's coming from right over the Hollywood sign. That affects you when you drive over the hill. You can feel the vibration start to change.
Not to mention Hollywood. Hollywood has kind of a twisted.
Really, yeah, I don't like to do any ritual work in Hollywood or anywhere near or the Valley. Robby's got really great spots as close as Pasadena, people who I was introduced to, and as far as Joshua Tree, that are not on those lines.
Yeah,
they are not. They are not conduits for that. So for me, I'm really sensitive to all that stuff. Back to sex magic. My buddy Gianni gave me a book on Taoist sex magic. He's been dabbling in that for a while. I haven't read it yet. I would be interested in that. I'm more interested in the Kundalini, really building it from Kundalini, and working with the yogini and building my fire, and then just after that, it's all harnessing. And so that, I know for me, I've got to literally, and it comes through your voice. You can hear when someone's been doing that type of work. So I kind of have a plan to sex magic. I'm not even married yet though, brother. So if I don't get the polarity right, the duality right, I can't work it. So that's my experience with it.
The political parties, the liberal and the conservative, and the shifting back and forth. It sounds like AC/DC current. That you were saying you need them both. Can you relate that to subatomic particles or something?
Yeah, I mean, you need positive and negative. You need those. And the reason why we need those is because you can't, at least in terms of electricity, you not in terms of electricity, in terms of energy, optics. There's optics that run on electron beams, right? So the reason why is because these electron beams will overfill an element because it's filled with electrons, and when they start to backscatter, it knows what it is. It has a sensor and reads it. And I mean, that's what happens when electrons bounce off of an element. We know exactly what it is because a few electrons bounced off it. So when you're absorbing it, when you're utilizing it, you're being bombarded by it. Your phone is giving you some, right? So bring that to media, bring that to where we are, the current political climate. There's a couple of things that I will go on record and say, and this is stuff that's like William Cooper don't really like talk about why you know this stuff. So I'll just tell you, a little birdie allegedly told me when playing Minecraft, you really don't want to be watching much TV. So frequencies and oscillation, certain frequencies lead to susceptibility, and these are subliminal transmissions. So I think both parties have been accused by doing it in different ways, and that is sort of probably the negative part, because I'm not happy with any party's media portrayal or the way that they utilize the media as misdirection. There are things happening in the world. There is a genocide happening in China right now. should be at the forefront of all outlets, and it isn't.
Yeah.
We look at the guy who used to host The Apprentice on Twitter, and that becomes the headline. It's misdirection. So I will not be curtailed by that. I read all about Harry Houdini's fun. Oh, it works. So that's the thing, is I'm not happy with Jeff Bezos. I don't like what he did with the Times. I don't like how I get the emails. I don't like how it's written. It's very one-sided. Let
me ask you, as a black man, how do you experience America right now with a heightened racial conflicts, and the Proud Boys just splintered into two because gloves off. I don't want queers.
Yeah, now they're Proud Goys too.
Colored people, we're white nationalists, and I mean, with people that are like actually admitting that they're white nationalists, that are actually in conventional politics. What is that like for you as an African American scientist?
I mean, for me, it hasn't really spoiled my milk ever. You know,
it hasn't spoiled your milk. Okay.
No, I
mean, have you experienced any sort of threats or intimidation being a black man?
I kind of lean right into it. If I notice a swastika, I'll usually stretch my hand out to someone. And I'll usually get a handshake back. With that stuff, I'm really, really naive, or I'm fearless. And maybe I've been trained in martial arts too. It's possible, allegedly. So I don't really, I'm not a fighter either. I'm very much a pacifist. I probably watched American History X with more neo-Nazis than most people. And Aryans are very, very, very much, I get it. You know, I get it. I get it. I get it.
What is there to get?
Well, where it comes from. So it's, you know, we have to go back to Norse mythology. We need to go all the way back to Woden. Woden says, man, Norse man, Aryan man in the future, I, Norse man, have reasoning. Now I have reasoning. I am equal with God. I am not God. I am equal with God. White Norseman. From there, we get everything. We get all the fascism. We get all of it, and it's the trip.
So some of their primal narratives are innately racist. You're saying? Wow.
It's no one makes any. Why is the Tiwas ruined on all the nationalist flags? That was one of my favorite runes. That was one of my favorite runes too. But
I know. I used to love goose stepping, but Hitler just ruined it for me.
And that Charlie Chaplin mustache.
I know what it is. Yeah.
I think we should reclaim goose stepping. I'm just going to start going around doing that.
I mean, you know,
just for the sheer hell of it.
You know, it's I get it. I get everyone wants to belong, and I think that's the main thing that that drives a lot of the youth towards white supremacy, is that when people have been telling you for the last 30 years, we've got history and the internet now, we realize you're the biggest assholes on the planet. I would imagine you probably get tired of hearing it at some point.
That makes sense. Well, and for people who
I really know,
generous.
I know how to play devil's advocate. I can go fully on the other side. I don't really know what that would be like. But I do know that everyone wants to belong, and I do know that at the end of the day, it's something that's been around for a long time. And in that way, runes are not much different than the Torah. Runes are not much different than, you know, the asteroid Mecca, right? Runes are not much different than any other artifacts that we have that prove there's a power greater than ourselves. We look to these things. It's part of being human, I think.
Did you say Mecca is an asteroid? I've heard that before.
You can't dig it up or you'll be shot on an attempt, but supposedly it's either attached to the building, in the building, or under the building. And I'm not sure. Yeah.
And that's where the idea of the black stone comes from. That's related to the Kaaba. Is this asteroid?
Islam starts getting into some really so there's a split between Judaism and Islam after Akkadian, Mesopotamian, Sumerian cradle of civilization. So between there and 1666, somewhere between there, they split, preceding Muhammad, right? So it wasn't actually Muhammad, it's right before Muhammad. So right now I'm really interested in that split.
Like
Isaac
500 or 600 AD, I think.
Yeah, I'm really interested in that split. I got a buddy of mine at UVA who I recently reconnected with, guy's PhD from Harvard in theology, and he is at UVA now teaching. Really smarter than me. Also black, but he was raised Muslim. So we will come together and do some great work on that hopefully soon. So
I would like to participate in that some. My dissertation was related to how the Isaac and Ishmael narrative is kind of an algorithm within a larger algorithm that's actually contributed to current global conflicts, and it's how the different groups can reconceptualize their narrative that shapes their stance towards the other, where it's more peaceful or whether it's more combative.
Did you ever tell my mom this?
I thought I did. It's so funny because, like, I mean, you live with people and they do all these cool, awesome things, but half the time you're just like talking about food, you know. JoEl's mom cooked the most amazing vegan soul food. Like, she made this stuff that
she really does.
It tasted just like catfish with this dill sauce, and it was all vegan. She won't tell me what it was. It's like complete sorcery. Her ability to do this.
I don't even know what it is, and if I knew, I couldn't tell you. But what I wanted to say though is, man, there's a lot of great work to be done between the three. It's much opportunity to bring it all together, and I think that metaphysics really does that. It brings it's more science than religion likes, and it's more religion than science likes, and you just make it work. And where there's question marks, respectfully, honorably, you can start to give some proof. And
Edward, you mentioned Newton.
Newton, it's hard to say if anyone contributed more to the what I say, the put up or shut up of it all. In other words, you need to give me repeatable experiments. We need credence. We need reference, and most importantly, I need visualization, and it needs to be tangible. The only problem with proof is though it works against faith. So this is where we start to run into like the Shroud of Turin. We're never going to know what the real results are because the Holy See will not publicize that. Those real results are never going to leave a vault in the Vatican because one way or the other, that's just a little too much proof, one way or the other. And but we have the Dead Sea Scrolls. And the reason why I love the Dead Sea Scrolls is the only complete book in it is my favorite one that ain't canonized, Book of Enoch. That's the only complete book in there. And that lets me know that more than likely after you read the Book of Enoch, it kind of makes sense. Genesis was like a Cliff Notes version of that and something else put together. Yeah. Baruch, maybe?
Yeah.
One of those other non-canonized books. So, you know, we just have this level of, you know, things that will be plausible deniability, which is what we see our government having a lot of. But there's the same lack of transparency with a lot of our artifacts that will prove or disprove. We know where the Ark is. You just can't go in there, right? Because if you go in there and you read that, you change the narrative of the other two, because it's 3 in Jerusalem, right? It's Judeo-Christian Islam, right? So you can't read that and publicize that or you will die, right? That's known stuff in Jerusalem. This is known. You cannot take photos in there or you will die. Egypt, there's certain places in Egypt you cannot go or you will die, right? You're not going to get that proof, right?
People kill you or something beyond?
Like how come we don't go in all of Khufu's chambers? Because that stuff is not getting released. That's why. Like, it's not. Like, it isn't. It's very easy to get in there. It isn't difficult to get in there. Just like it's very easy to what's a good example? What's a relic?
So you think there's actual technology in these pyramids that people in authority know about that the average person doesn't know about?
I think that our government hides stuff from us, and I think that other governments also aren't transparent fully with their citizens. And yeah, so I think that just like the guy who discovers lightning in a bottle to give unlimited energy, he gets mysteriously assassinated right before Exxon goes public, right? Just like that, there's a sweet dance, and it is a dance and it is a game to the level of disruption. I mentioned that before. I'll mention it again. There is a certain rate of disruption that the powers that be and I think planet will allow, so as it doesn't offset everything else. And whether that be, man getting involved or whether that be nature getting involved, I think that goes 2 ways. I think that the Earth has to go through a cycle of change, and I hope we survive it, to just talk a little bit of dystopian future I did on earlier. But then I also think when it comes to what man can do, we're not going to be able to extend our lives 2,000 years. We lost that. We can't do that anymore. That was a proponent of leaving Eden. Now, I believe Eden still exists. I think you can access it, and I think you can live 900 years there if you want to. I don't base that on anything other than me. That's what I believe.
All right.
That I do. It's just faith.
Like in the Tigris and Euphrates, like the literal biblical story of Eden?
Right. So, yeah. Well, it's what dimension, right? So what dimension, on what plane, how far under the earth, or like, is it a realm that, another dimension that we can't conceive of yet? Is there an earth on top of this earth? Right. I don't have those tools to measure right now, but I don't want to get too far off point. I'm saying that man will not access Eden. Man will not live 1,000 years. The forces that be, the Ouroboros, the firmament, the fences, the limiters, they're not the dominions, right? We're not going to be able to do that, because that is a we tried that and it didn't work very well.
So
right?
What do you believe about the Watchers? Because what you're talking about sounds a lot like the Watchers in the Book of Enoch.
Yeah. I mean, Jinn, Watchers, Nephilim. I think we're starting to get over a little bit on time. That's kind of something I might want to say for a whole nother conversation.
Oh,
No,
Come on, it's just starting to get good.
it's you know, I gotta you know, I will say this. I think that the Book of Enoch is probably should be canonized. I got more out of the Book of Enoch than I did Genesis. Genesis just has some really cool stories, but Genesis doesn't give the names. It doesn't give the actions. It doesn't explain things the way I like things explained. You know, things I always wonder, like, why do women wear makeup? Why? But why? Why? When? Who? Which one?
So here's something I've discovered historically, because I'm more into the theological history of all these things. But since we talked last, I have found that there is archaeological and textual proof that the order that Jesus was a part of moved to the Garden of Eden between the Tigris and Euphrates after the destruction of Jerusalem and after Qumran was sacked. Because the Essenes, they also had a lot of zealots that lived with them. It was almost like, Black Panthers or occasionally stay in a hippie commune,
Well, no, I mean, Josephus has the Essenes on record as late as, the 300, 330. And they were still, Josephus talks about them being in Greece and them having aspects
Pythagoreans.
They had aspects of the Nazarite vows, right? There was no drink, but they did cannibalism as part of the offering tent. So they would have the stone with, I believe it was pomegranate, cannibalism, frankincense, and they would waft it under a sheet on the heated stone before prayer. That was an Essene trait. So
the Scythians did that too. I've heard that the Scythians kind of brought that to the Middle East in some ways.
Yeah, well, and then you start to, that's how it goes to the Assassin under
Muhammad,
Suleiman. No, not Suleiman. Who brought them all together? Who brought everybody together over there? Not Suleiman. All that stuff was happening under Saladin. Thank you, Saladin. Thank you, Saladin. The man, the Mac Daddy, Solomon. Is Solomon. I mean, Solomon and Saladin. Solomon's my Hebrew name, so that was a little Freudian slip there. But no, Saladin. Yeah. All of that was happening that under him, and I really love that era of the Middle East. I have a good friend who grew up. Her parents are Sufis, and Sufism's like some of the most beautiful literature I've ever read.
Oh yeah.
If the words don't get you, the calligraphy is magical and majestic. Arabic's got a lot, and I had a theory. I have my theories about, how Arabic and, Aramaic broke off, because they're very similar. But yeah, man, I just to close up, I think all the watchers, I really hold fast to all that in the Book of Enoch. For me, it's canon. It is canon for me. So in JoEl's world, yeah.
Nice. Are you privy to information as a scientist that you're not telling us? That's what you're saying? Is there stuff that that you can't tell people?
What do you mean?
Never mind.
I think we all got a little bit of that, by the way. I don't think I just have one of those keys. I think we all have one of those keys, though. So
one of those keys. Interesting, yeah.
Yeah, one of those keys.
What were you saying, Edward?
Oh, I was just thinking. Oh, we got 2 hours so far. Maybe we could wrap this up, but I think we should do a part 2. Maybe not, next week, but like at a certain point, after re-listening to this, we can take some notes. And I know there's going to be at least 10 things that each of us think, oh, hey, we could have gone in that direction, connected this dot with that dot. So yeah, I think we should do this again sometime.
That sounds good.
But I definitely appreciate you coming on, JoEl. And I was just wondering if there was anything you wanted to close with. I was going to say if anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how would they do that? But are you even interested in people getting in touch with you?
I always.
Oh, okay.
Real friends are. I don't even really like the term friends. I like family.
Yeah.
You're born with a family, and then just like Mark Twain said, the day you find out why you were born, sometime around the greatest day of your life, you realize you have a second family.
Yeah.
And they're all your real friends.
Yeah.
They're the friends that you'll almost come to blows. You'll chew each other out. You'll even threaten each other. And you might even end up in some situations, but you know what? That's the thing about family. You end up eating dinner together not too much long after. And that's, I'm all about family. Robby and I, we have those scars, and they're scars I wouldn't trade anything for, because
I think that would be a good story to tell on our next one. There's some really interesting stuff with that.
No, that's not on the record. That's when we're all in Nepal and in Bhutan, eating curry, all the curry.
I want all the curry.
But it's been what I'm saying is, rarely are you tested. Rarely is a relationship truly tested. Rarely is a connection truly tested. And a lot of things break. And, I think Robby and I have something that's unbroken and it's unmatched. And if I can, invite you, and if you would be a part of this, with the great spiritual work that we set out to do, Edward, I think that we can really make a difference in the world.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that.
Definitely.
Translating metaphysics into real tangible results is a beautiful thing. Next time we get together, I would love to just start almost as a starting point from that Saturn ritual and describe what we did and describe what happened thereafter, because after that, a lot of stuff happened that year.
Yeah, that year was wild for me.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't want to say I got everything I wanted, but I will say that when you have your year, and the electrons are really flowing in your direction, you really have to be clear about what you actually think you want and what you want. That's usually hindsight.
Interesting.
A lot of good and bad things happened in 2018. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I wouldn't be here if I did. And so, that was a rough year, man. I lost the house. Yeah, me and Robin and all that. But, I mean, also Netherlands, also, where else there? France, also, Indie Lab. We started the lab, or I joined the board. They already started it, but
how's that going now?
Owners, and it's good. Oh, the lab's good, man. I just did some work up there. It's good.
Where are you guys based out of now?
Richmond.
Virginia?
Yeah, I mean, that's the lab I work out of now. New York was too expensive. LA didn't really have a real ecosystem. So
you were working with UC Riverside for a minute, right?
Still am. I still have an advisor there. I had a visiting scholar. I was doing a visiting scholarship there for a year, and they wouldn't let me patent anything because they said, yeah, they said any thing that you do here, we're gonna own 60% of it. And I said, well, what about the stuff I already did? And they're like, but you already did it, so any new patents is going to be stuff you did here, right? And I was like, hold please. And then I went to Richmond.
Are you connected to any universities back there?
Yeah, I just did some stuff at Virginia Tech, which is kind of full circle. I started out, I took my first college class At 15, it was general physics at Tech, and now I'm working there on stuff. So that's a big full circle for me.
You were doing college physics at 15.
Well, I just wanted to take it, and they didn't offer it. My mom just went and asked if I could do it, and then she went to the school board, and they said they would make sure it was matriculated credit. So, yeah. But I don't know, man. I love Virginia. I've always loved Virginia. These mountains are the lowest, which means they're the oldest. And
I've heard that.
There's a magic here you can't find anywhere else. And the New River, the only other river that travels in the opposite direction, like the Nile. So and it's the second
Appalachians
oldest.
are beautiful.
It's the second oldest in the world, next to the Nile. So it's really the nature. I'm out in the nature right now. Can't beat it with a stick. But to be back at Virginia Tech is good. I love LA only so much as the people that I did meet that were amazing, and having my son there. But I never fell in love with LA, Robbie. You know, I fell in love with you and Anna. You know, I did. Even God, you know how spirit's funny. When someone instantly bothers you, it's you. It's not them. So Nathan, I even love Nathan. And if Nathan doesn't grate my gear every single time, it's only because he does exactly what I do. That's it. I realized that one day. I was like, he just does exactly what I do. In fact, I was going to challenge him to a push-up contest because I knew I couldn't pull off the backflip. So, like, it was almost bad that one day.
Oh, you're talking about Nolan, the guy.
What did I
the
say,
guy playing
Nathan?
bass?
I say Nathan. I meant Nolan. Sorry.
Yeah.
Nolan. Sorry. Yeah, no, but spirit's funny. But even I say all this to say this: the people are who I fell in love with. Not the place, and Virginia's
right.
so much more. So yeah.
Oh man, I've spent time in the Appalachians. It's magical. Just the air, the smell, the moisture that's in the air, the moss. It's so primal. It's a dang forest.
It's good. It's good. It's good. So I'll be coming back to LA to get stuff in like a month. And then
please swing by for socially distanced coffee.
Oh no, I will. You know it. I'm just letting you know the time frame to expect me. But I will definitely see you. And then Edward, we have to make plans. My next international flight will hopefully be next month to Peru. After that, let's start seeing how close of a nanotech conference is held to where you're at, and that'll give me something to write off.
Indeed. I think that right now India is not letting anyone in because of COVID. So it'll probably have to be maybe when this Pfizer vaccine gets going, or maybe another vaccine.
Sure. We'll see what happens. I'm not excited and jazzed about the vaccines, but
oh really?
No, I'm not. I'm not about vaccines. I'm not, but I think they're good. I think you need some. I think you need some. I just think that data is important, and so are clinical trials, and you can make sample sets look like anything you want. Yeah, you can manipulate data to literally have any outcome you want: positive, negative, neutral. Technical writing with peer-reviewed journals is
and there's a lot of other motivators going on besides actually helping people, like being the first company, the first country, or whatever to get and of course all the money and prestige that comes with that.
I'm not surprised it's the same guys that keep your dick hard. I'm not surprised. I wish I could say I was. I'm not surprised at all.
Oh man,
I'm not surprised at all. Not even in the slightest. In fact, if you would have asked me to bet who comes up with it between them and Merck, maybe Bayer, because Bayer does a lot of stuff on the sly, little skunk works, little private stuff that like no one knows about. Like they just quietly became the largest carbon nanotube producer in the world. and then just shut it down one day for no reason. Oh yeah, Bear's got biological. Yeah, Bear's got its own Vatican, dude. It's called Kim Park. Listen to me. Bear has its own Vatican in Germany where the laws are different in the Kim Park, and you live there, and it's a different zip code. I'm trying to tell you, Bear, that company.
That's weird.
If you ever thought there was a real umbrella company, it's either Bear or Unilever. And Unilever starts with the U. So, yeah. Anyways,
that's worth the whole episode of Esoterinerd right there.
Yeah, it's probably Unilever. I'm also a little biased because they were my first customer and never paid me. So, ergo, there is a little personal bias with Unilever.
That's such a mafia move.
Yeah, it's all good.
It's a Donald Trump move.
It's cool.
Yep. It's a good move.
I got paperwork with their name on it. It was worth it. It was worth it. Great first customer, so I'll take it. Lesson learned. Get the money first. Lesson learned. So, anyways, well, guys, it's really good to be in the spirit with you all because that's what it feels like.
Yes.
You know, we went on a lot of tangents and we talked about a lot.
Yeah, this was all over the place.
But
it can be rearranged though, because we covered some beautiful territory, man.
Yeah,
it wasn't scripted. You let me talk a lot. Thank you. I'll try to pass the talk next time. But it wasn't scripted. It was real, and nothing fell on deaf ears. And I feel sharper because iron sharpens iron.
It was wonderful connecting with you guys, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And yeah, guys, be in touch. Edward, I will give you my Google Voice.
Okay.
If you ever want to text or reach out, texting is a super easy way to get in contact with me. Facebook Messenger is just as good as text for me. So I'll usually respond unless I'm asleep or right in the middle of something.
Yeah, certainly. Sounds good. Yeah, thank you very much for coming on here. I know Robby's been talking about doing this episode for, I think, about 2 years.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been so looking forward to connecting you, two of the most interesting people I know.
And we met. I remember you and I met at Robby's place at that party. I remember there were vegan hot dogs.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Was that the night? Was that the late night where it was you, Terry? Okay, because it ended up being 4 guys, and I remember it was Rob,
the professor,
Terry, Cam,
the professor. Yeah. Were we at were we around your rainbow fire altar?
Yeah, you did it. You did an indoor ritual. Yeah, exactly. That you never did. I was like, oh my God, someone got into my bud and accidentally lit it on fire. And I came down and it's like the 4 of you. I'm like, okay, I just went to church with some of these people. This is very cool.
Nice.
This is very cool. I was like, we can do everything together. This is awesome. So
yeah, we've had some good grok sessions, man.
God, we have. Jeez, Lord, we have. And right on time, some of them too. Right on time, like right when we were getting some of the gnarliest fucking shit happening to us.
Yes.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Yeah, man. I love
energy current transfer.
Yeah, I love you, dude. And Edward, I will start loving you now.
Thank you so much. I love you too.
It's an action. It's an action.
Yeah. Definitely.
Okay, I know what to end on.
What's that?
What is love? Right. So love is a lot of different definitions. And for me, it is giving to others basic needs without personal reward as a motive. So the way that I would fix my son a meal without expecting him to pay for it, or the way that I, love Jackie Chan movies, even though I've never met him. They're different intensities, but it's the same thing. It is just, I want to see you thrive. I want to be there and turn one of those wheels And
Yeah.
the way you pay that back to me is by doing that thing. And that is my expectation, man. So I'm starting to love you today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, I will sit and turn the wheel with you any day, my brother.
God, I love you, man.
All right. Blessings.
Blessings to you too. And thank you for posting that thing on my Facebook wall. That moved me. I needed it.
All right, man. For sure. It was beautiful.
All right. God bless you guys.
God bless you.
And yeah, have a strong and powerful day.
Amen.
Amen.
Right.
You too.
Thank
Amen
you.
Ra.
Hotep. All right. Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Good night. All right. Looks like are you still on there?
Yes, I'm still on here.
All right. Cool. Yeah.
Oh, man. He's one of the rare individuals that just, he kind of thinks multidimensionally, and it's part of his genius, and it's fascinating. It just takes a while.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like I'm a little bit out of practice, or my path lately has been more contemplative and less sort of manic. You know what I mean? Like, or like,
Yeah.
because I used to get really impassioned with grand arm gestures talking about esoterics, but now I just sort of, it's much more of a, like a slow, quiet observation process.
It's fascinating. The difference being in India for a few years.
Yeah. Well, and being retired from active duty in the cult, because I think I was teaching before I had learned anything, is the thing. Like they had me up on a pedestal in a white robe in front of 100 people, performing as if I were, a magician who had, you know what I mean, like really done something, and so I kind of got used to being in that role, and then sort of realized that I didn't have anything really much behind it, because all of my time and energy in the cult was directed toward, very low vibration politics and, sort of low chakra, shenanigans and lies and, these kinds of things. And so it was, when I left all that, I mean, all this, but I was sort of self-medicating, wanting to go on the yoga path and the Buddhist path, thinking maybe one day that could lead me to a space where I actually would be in a place to be able to offer people something other than parroted words. And it was interesting, kind of like looking into the yoga world and then having that perspective broaden and realizing how much of the sort of BS and politics is sort of universally human. And you'll find it whether you look in the church or in New Age or politics or yoga or whatever. So I mean, at once it's sort of like it's disappointing, but in a good way. Like, I think you've heard me talk about how I think it's good when our heroes fall, because It kind of gives us the opportunity to rise up and realize, oh my God,
take our place.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, I'm actually better in a lot of ways than these famous yoga masters that everybody kisses the ass of, as and that the best possible thing you can have on your resume is any kind of connection whatsoever to these sort of, abusive people. It's weird. It's really weird.
I know that the guru method was so essential to so many spiritual paths in India, and it works on an intensely deep level, but it is so
with small groups
ripe for abuse.
Yeah. And when there's a international corporate organization, with the guru's name on it, and then there's tens of thousands of members and people cycling in and out, and some of them are young women or whatever the guru is, things like that, then it gets really odd. Where I think in situations where you have a guru that has 4 or 5 students, or maybe just one, then you can have a very genuine lineage of teachings passed on from one person to the next in some cases. And then in other cases, it turns out that there's abuse in those, relationships as well. So it's, like I think that some people kind of put it up on a pedestal and say, everything that is, Indian or Hindu is good and holy, but it's not true, but the same, you can say the same thing about priests, of course, there's a lot of priests that have their heart in the right place. And then there's the really bad ones.
I know I've heard you say before that one of the interesting things about being in India compared to Los Angeles is that every day in India involves some type of ritual. And I almost pictured like an entire society that was based on Kabbalah that all like incorporated rituals and angel names into their daily life. Because didn't you say like there's just practically a holiday every day where somebody's lighting incense to a different sort of a sage?
Well, definitely a lot of like shopkeepers will have a shrine to Lakshmi, goddess of wealth. And like, for example, the guy that was selling cigarettes outside our place in Delhi, if I went down exactly at 9 o'clock or whenever he was opening, I'm familiar enough with these sort of things that I would just stand there and politely wait until he finished, because part of his opening up, he got everything set up and ready to open business, but he had to light the incense and 7 times bow to the little picture of Lakshmi and move the incense around in circles and place it in a particular way. And then, okay, what kind of cigarettes do you want? And so it was just sort of like really odd and interesting, like the sort of thing that in the Western culture you would usually only find in a church, and that in a Catholic church only. And the Protestants did away with all that ritual stuff mostly. But I guess in like a lot of traditional Jewish households, you have the, I forget what it's called, the little shin with the prayers inside on the doorway that you kiss on the way in every time you walk through the door. So I get there are certain places where you find, sort of ritual that's embedded into the culture. In like, for example, in Golden Dawn culture, there's a lot of times people do the sign of silence, and you don't know what they're doing or what they're thinking, or just driving down the street, someone will put their left index finger to their lip, and you know that they just did some kind of magical working on the astral. So, in India, if you drop 100 rupees on the ground, you pick it up and you hold it to your forehead and close your eyes and kind of move it back and forth between your lips and your forehead as an apology to Lakshmi for having dropped your money on the ground. If you touch someone with your foot and they're someone that you respect, then you kiss your hand and touch them, just a lot of little things like sort of built in. And a lot of astrology too. Like, in the West, you wouldn't find astrology involved in a court or in a church. So it's not like a mainstream thing. It's like a fringe thing to be interested in astrology. It's a new age thing, but here it's totally mainstream. Like, if it's a traditional Hindu family and they're planning a wedding, then they consult the astrologer. And if the astrologer says, don't have the wedding on that day, you don't. And, so it's very interesting. Things that we would consider magical are just every day here. Like Ayurveda, if someone was practicing Ayurveda in 16th century Europe, they would have been, tried as a witch probably. Okay, well, have a good day and blessings to you and your family and your clients. And thank you for co-hosting.
Yeah, I love you, man.
Love you too.
LVX Namaste.
Namaste, LVX, talk soon.
Thank you, JoEl, and thank you, Robby, for co-hosting tonight. Happy Friday the 13th, by the way, for those of you who are hearing this at the day it comes out. Special thanks to Susumu Ueda and his father and the other monks, his father being one of the monks at Chofuku-in Temple on Mount Koyasan, for the music you're hearing right now, the same music that you heard at the intro of this and all the Esoterinerd episodes. Special thanks to Camille and Kennerly for the harp intro and outro. Thank you all for tuning in. Good night.
Wow.